Our next speaker is Dr. Saveri Desai, who's going to talk on blowout fractures management. She's a consultant in oculoplasty, ocular oncology and aesthetics at Hinduja National Hospital, Mahim Hinduja Healthcare, and Breach Candy Hospital. So on to you, doctor.
Thank you, Dr. Chitra, AIOS, Dr. Santosh, for inviting me to speak here. And I'm looking forward to, this talk with all these panelists. I'll just share my screen. Am I visible?
Yes, Saveri, you are.
Okay, thank you. So I'll be speaking on blowout fracture management, which is a rather large topic to cover. I think Devjyoti did a really good job of how we approach it. But since this covers a large spectrum, I've taken out the salient fractures and the importance associated with them. So, so what is the exact formula which really works? Is there a formula for this, which is, sorry, I'm just going to, my screen is not showing up for me, sorry. Okay. Okay, so what is the formula that works? So it's a very simple thing on the basis of type of fracture, the timing of repair, the principles of repair, and the surgery itself, which gives us a functional and a cosmetic result. So fractures are broadly classified into pure fractures, such as the one where you see a red arrow, which is only a flaw fracture not involving the rim, or the one on its right side, which involves the flaw and the rim, which is also known as impure. Then you have tripod fractures, and then you have facial fractures, which involve Le Fort fractures and nasoethmoid fractures. But blowout fractures can further be classified into isolated fractures involving only one wall, fractures which involve more than one wall, as is seen in this case in the right side medial wall fracture, two walls, such as medial and inferior, and again, tripod fractures, which involve more than two walls. In most cases, CT scan, as Devjyoti mentioned, is the modality of investigation. But in case there is an intraocular foreign body or any foreign body suspected, then in the history, you need to take this and consider doing an MRI. So what are the recommendations for repair? So the recommendations are broadly classified, as most have been taught in undergraduation, as immediate, within 2 weeks, but I've made it 2 to 4 weeks, and post 4 weeks, which is considered a late repair, and observation, which will come to as case-wise. The principles of fracture repair as such are based on certain principles where you mobilize the soft tissue which is herniated, either the fat or the muscle itself, the repositioning of the framework, and the reconstruction of the orbital walls with implants. Along with this, a couple of things that you need to check is the nasolacrimal duct for any obstruction, also maxillary fractures, which are almost always involved in midfacial fractures, and also intraorbital anesthesia, which may be a very subtle but important finding, which involves the lower cheek and the teeth. Most approaches are done using an hidden incision, which is an inferior fornical incision. At least as oculoplastic surgeons, we have moved away from doing subciliary incisions, but yet a lot of plastic surgeons still do those, and hence we see late onset lower eyelid retraction, which would be quite severe and cosmetically disfiguring. While there are many implants, autologous and synthetic, these are my implants of choice. There is porous polyethylene, then there is a titanium mesh with porous polyethylene or without, silicone, which can be available as blocks or as just simple plates in different sizes or sheets. So I prefer to use porous polyethylene titanium, and of course, these are synthetic implants. You can mold them, you can cut them to the right size. Titanium has a higher cost, but it works well for certain types of implants, which we'll come to. As far as silicone goes, I used to use it a lot in my initial days of practice. I still do it. I use silicone block when it involves large enophthalmos. Regarding bone, which cannot be just ignored, a lot of plastic surgeons, most plastic surgeons prefer bone. I have not been taught with bone, and though I did accompany and assist for a couple of surgeries, combined surgeries with plastic surgeons for bone, it's not something I prefer doing, as I've seen that my results in my hands work with these implants. So the important thing is to also figure out an implant that works in your hands and not just in what has been advised to you over the years. So coming to cases, so we take a simple thing as a classical isolated floor fracture with a teardrop sign, restriction of movements in the vertical gaze, enophthalmos, and an entrapped fat or herniated fat, which is pulling on the inferior rectus. Occasionally, you have to also ask for an oculocardiac reflex, or the patient themselves might give a history of an oculocardiac reflex. Here you can see very clearly the classical teardrop sign. This patient underwent a simple floor fracture repair, taking care of her diplopia, enophthalmos, and gave a cosmetically good result. You can have medial wall fractures, which occur in about 7 to 40%. And as you can see here, unfortunately, my cursor is not working, but it's the left-sided orbit. You can see she has enophthalmos, and also there is herniation of the medial rectus. So most medial wall fractures can be left alone, but in cases where there is a horizontal restriction of movements and diplopia, either in abduction or adduction because of entrapment of medial rectus, those need to be intervened early. Medial wall fractures are also known to often present a little late, so as to initially the medial rectus does not seem like it's going to be causing any problems. There's no enophthalmos, but maybe after 2 weeks you may find some amount of enophthalmos, and that is usually requires to be addressed, but entirely depends on the patient. So we've had elderly patients who've not addressed that, as it did not cause any diplopia. This is the same lady who had a repair. I used porous polyethylene. You don't need to use any additional thing, but I did use glue to just keep it in place since it was a medial wall. The main thing about medial wall is to cover the entire defect in its toto. If you don't, and you leave, as is seen on the right-sided photo in arrow, and you do not go right up to the posterior side, eventually you may get a reherniation. So let's take a miss of mine, which happened in my early years. An inferior and a medial wall fractures can be seen. The medial wall, the medial rectus is herniating. I have repaired it, and as you can see, there is still a subtle amount of enophthalmos, and this is post-operative at 2 years. So what went wrong? So as you can see, the inferior rectus orientation is very horizontal. The floor has healed, but you can see that the medial rectus is still herniating into the fracture. So I used a silicone sheet, which I swung over the medial wall and the floor, and it has slid down over the years and caused the medial rectus to herniate again with no diplopia. But yes, she was not happy about the enophthalmos. So you have to be careful about using the right amount of implant. Coming to another isolated fracture known as the white-eye blowout fracture, which needs early repair, commonly seen in children, very trivial injuries such as a fall, bicycle handles, and the patient will be only realize that something's wrong on the 4th or 5th day, or even the 7th day, as is seen in this young 7-year-old boy who realized something was wrong and he could not see clearly. It was diplopia, obviously. And you can see the red arrow is pointing to the inferior rectus, which is actually sitting in the maxillary sinus. These usually they're typically known as white-eyed because there is no external injury and need to be repaired immediately. The entrapment has to be removed well, and the parents need to be informed that there may be some amount of diplopia which was.
What happened? Dr. Saveri?
Yes?
Talk is over? No.
No.
No,
As
but
my slide
I'm not seeing the screen anymore.
Oh, 1 minute, I think.
After you've stopped share, just reshare again.
Yes. Can you see it?
Yeah, yeah.
So this is the same boy in which the implant was placed, covering the defect, and he had no diplopia, but it took about almost 6 weeks to resolve. So this must be told to the parents, otherwise they get very scared. Coming to tripod or zygomaticomaxillary fracture, which is basically fractures involving 3 points of the zygoma. They have to be repaired immediately because, as you can see, they give rise to hypoglobus, diplopia, and significant enophthalmos. These can be done either on your own if you're confident of repairing the zygoma, or with a MaxFax or a plastic surgeon. You have to reduce the zygoma, fix the orbital framework, either in a 2 or 3 point fixation. This is very important, or else you will end up again with insignificant enophthalmos. Once you've reconstructed, you place the implant covering the defect. So this is the same gentleman at 2 years follow-up with no enophthalmos. And as you can see here, the plate is covering both the medial and the lateral extent and the posterior strut of the fracture. Now, when we use any isolated or two-wall fractures such as inferomedial, it is absolutely pertinent that the implant reaches up to the posterior strut. So this is a gentleman who came to us because he was told that he did not need repair. And as you can see with the orange arrow, there was a fracture and the orbit looks a little larger. So this is at 3 weeks, he had developed enophthalmos and was told that initially he would not repair just because there was no herniation of the muscle. So in cases like this, which is not a very large fracture, what you could do is call the patient and observe him on a weekly basis.
We can't hear you.
Ma'am, the connection dropped, I believe. There is some disruption which is happening.
So,
can you hear me now?
Ma'am, your presentation stopped and your connection also stopped.
Yeah.
But I don't know why that's happening. I have a full. Yeah, I'll conclude. Just give me a minute. So coming to the last, that is the post-traumatic enophthalmos. This, as you can see, this lady's maxillary fractures were repaired and connected, but was told that she did not need anything for the orbit, and she developed 7 millimeters of enophthalmos. In this case, where you have to take care of such a significant enophthalmos, firstly, you have to cannot promise the patient that you'll be able to get absolutely, equal results. You may have a little residual enophthalmos, and you would like to get a 3D CT and review the entire thing, and maybe even do, like Dr. Grover said, just a sort of a imprint of the other orbit. So in this case, we did get almost near results. She does still have about 1 millimeter enophthalmos, and I used a titanium mesh covering all the way from her medial wall to the floor. Coming to the last slide, which is the isolated orbital flaw fracture. In these cases where there is, as you can see, there is a fracture in the right orbit with a little herniation. We have observed him till 4 weeks, no diplopia, no herniation, and no surgery required. So each fracture has its own cost. Document the extent of the injury. Choose the implant that works in your hands for the fracture. And as Dr. Grover very rightly said, combined team effort is a win-win situation. Thank you. I'm sorry about the connection.
No, thank you very much. But I think I'll have to hold on with the questions and first hear our speakers.